Oh, I'm. Sometimes you just have things that are in your work, in your play, in your home, and clutter. We've become a nation of clutters. Remember when we had the folks on from the Minimalist, and they came out with that documentary on Netflix, and it was two dudes, and I think they were married to women and stuff, and they were two dudes having a good time, and I believe they live in Montana or Wyoming. I don't know really what the difference is, and they just got rid of everything. And, and I don't know if you go through this as well, but, whether it's in your car, wherever, the clutter sometimes gets you. And that's really what we're talking about today when we take a look at just so many news stories and with the social media going on, how do you keep up with things? Well, we do our very best to have quality time each and every morning. We do our very best on KIDOTalkRadio.com to give you some stuff, but it's just sometimes it's overwhelming. And you have to fight the urge to check out. I had a friend of mine that says, well, regardless of what happens in the election, I'm out. Well, you can't do that, right? You can't do that. Too many issues are at stake. And who would have thought that this issue going on involving Israel and moving the embassy to the Capitol, and then you've got everybody upset. And, you think to yourself, really, does it make that big of a difference that we're, everybody's threatening us in the day of rage? Well, wouldn't it be nice if all of us could act so irresponsibly as the folks in Palestine are saying that they're going to have a day of rage, right? Couldn't we have a day of rage? Well, a lot of us, I suppose, have a day of rage at home or work, depending on the mood of our spouses. But it's just ironic to me that, and then you have the media going, well, we don't want to mess with them. It's the day of rage. They're going to get us. When did we become just so fearful of other people? Or my favorite is when the president says something, and all of a sudden they go, well, he insulted Kim Jong-un. Yeah, Kim Jong-un's a dictator. Kim Jong-un is a bad guy. Kim Jong-un tortures his people, and the president's bad for calling him out on it. It is a crazy, wacky, zany world we live in. And hopefully we can inoculate you from some of that insanity. Joining us now from FAIR, our great friend Dan Stein. Dan, good to have you with us once again. Welcome to Idaho.
Morning, Kevin. How are you?
Not bad. A little cold here, and certainly trying to get over this verdict that happened in California involving this illegal alien and just the repercussions of this. What's the latest?
Well, because they've been interviewing one of the alternate jurors who said that when the jury was given the charge for manslaughter, which would be the lowest, threshold. They said he had to be brandishing the gun under the law. And, of course, I guess brandishing means he has to be waving it around, showing it to the victim, like you have to see the gun before you die. And the jury apparently interpreted that to mean, well, he wasn't waving it around. I guess he had it in his lap or something sitting on the dock, and so therefore it wasn't manslaughter, which is really impossible to understand, that kind of a charge. It doesn't make any sense. More importantly, everything possible was done, Kevin, to try to make sure the jurors had no context. So even though, and I think it's fine for them to admonish the jury that it's not an immigration case, but I gather the judge must have decided that by telling the jury anything about the man involved, the illegal alien, that he'd been deported 5 times, that he'd come back in, that or the context in which the city had not cooperated with federal authorities, somehow that would have been too prejudicial to the jury. But, the whole thing just violates basic common sense. The jurors are entitled to understand enough of the context to be able to evaluate, motive, intention, and that kind of thing. If you see somebody who's demonstrated just an abject refusal to respect the law over and over again, it ought to say something about the motives of the person who perpetrated the crime. But it's a wonder that people beginning to completely lose confidence in our judicial system. Kevin, I don't know who has confidence in our judicial system now, having seen the politicization of our judges and how they're more than willing to interject their own political views and ignore the law.
Well, and Dan, we see this all the time with these sanctuary cities. And my favorite thing from this case was that the gun just accidentally fired, no manslaughter, no this, and then you have this beautiful young woman, Bill O'Reilly talking about Kate's Law and everything else, who lost her life, did nothing wrong, and this is a man who had been deported again and again and again, and you think to yourself, how many victims is it going to take for people to wake up and say, enough already?
But, Kevin, there are institutional forces in this country today that have abject opposition and contempt for our borders, for our immigration laws. The Democratic Party in its entirety no longer believes that there should be any negative consequences for people who violate the immigration law. I mean, unless you're a terrorist or serial murderer, they basically have taken the view that if you come illegally, you should be allowed to stay. I mean, they want to shut down the government, Kevin, basically put into jeopardy the livelihood of American citizens who work for the government, people who've been here for generations, maybe built our cities, fought for our independence, fought the Civil War. Their interests are somehow subordinate. The illegal aliens, people who broke the law, came here. They're going to shut down the government because they want an amnesty. And, God bless Donald Trump. He understands the political insanity of the Democrats' position. But the thing in San Francisco with Kate Steinle can only happen when you create an environment, right, where the whole culture of the city stands, hostilely to the idea that we should be a nation of laws and that immigration laws should be enforced. And this is the result you get.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I love how people want to continue these sanctuary cities, and they have an issue with the federal government doing its job. And what about these judges that arbitrarily have declared themselves the king?
Well, an awful lot of the why we see the decline in civil debate in the public square, Kevin, is that when you have like core assumptions diverging to the point where you can't even have a decent dialogue, judges are supposed to interpret the law. I mean, all you have to do is watch the ACLU and its expectation that it has like control over judicial appointments, working through the old ABA judicial screening test, and all you got to do is read Mark Levin's Men in Black and look at the letters and memos that went back between Dick Durbin, Ted Kennedy, and others, Pat Leahy on the Judiciary Committee. They basically see the judiciary as a super legislature. Most Americans don't pay apparently enough attention to the Supreme Court to realize this, but when a guy like Justice Kennedy can just stand there by himself and apparently decide that, marriage means something different than what it's meant for the last 500,000 years, that somehow that's a superior outcome to having that issue decided in the state legislatures in a democratic process, small d. I mean, Americans somehow are more than happy to have the judiciary, acclimate itself to this idea that these judges' judgment is supposed to be somehow innately superior to people who are elected to serve in representative government. And that's, it's gotten really bad because, in the case of the travel vetting, really what Trump is doing is establishing vetting procedures, accelerated vetting and improved vetting, and suspending certain admissions while he improved the vetting. Well, the ACLU did a tremendous disservice to this country by running around calling it a Muslim ban. Everything that Barack Obama said was very incendiary. Well, that's what they were doing. It was never a Muslim ban. And finally, the Supreme Court has allowed this third travel ban, whatever you want to call it, to go into place. But the point is these lower court judges did exactly what they intended to do, which was to so delay the process by, frivolously issuing these injunctions and abusing their authority, that they wind up defeating this critical operation of the executive branch to protect national security. I mean, try to imagine a judge, a single district judge, enjoining the president from countering a hostile foreign attack from the Russians because he thought we weren't providing equal treatment, that we ought to also be, attacking the Chinese at the same time, and it's a violation of the Equal Protection Clause or some other quackery. I mean, that's basically what we're looking at here with these injunctions on the travel issues, travel ban. So, what I don't understand, Kevin, is how can the American people put up with this usurpation, this theft of our basic democratic liberties and the destruction of our institutions and this declaration of judicial supremacy to the point where our basic civil liberties and rights are being abused all the time, our right to representative government. And I don't want to digress too much here, but this is emblematic of a far more profound problem. So people say, well, what's it going to take to make people wake up? Well, the first thing they have to do is understand the problem. Kate Steinle is dead because somebody was in this country who never should have been here, who got back in after being deported X number of times. And most people, normal people, would say, Well, what's wrong? How do we prevent a recurrence? Why isn't the city of San Francisco cooperating with federal authorities to make sure if you're here illegally in California, you can't function? Instead, Jerry Brown welcomes them in, wants to eviscerate all the distinctions between alien and citizen, and give all the rights and privileges of people here illegally that U.S. citizens are entitled to. And you wonder why this happens.
Our great friend Dan Stein joining us from FAIR at KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning. And it's just not in San Francisco. These events have been happening all over the country where you have people that have been here illegally, deported, come back, and commit horrible crimes. And yet you have the emotional defense perpetrated by the national media, Dan, that, oh, everybody's good, and if you call people what they are, the criminals that come in, then you're a bad person for wanting to keep America safe.
Well, many of the people who have this so-called DACA program, or this whole thing was a scheme, this dreamer thing. Dick Durbin, the Dems all cooked this up because they're trying to drive a wedge between Hispanic voters and the Republican Party. The whole behavior of Dick Durbin in this DACA Dreamer Act thing shows that the Dems are not operating in good faith. But think about it. Some of these DACA people came as 16, 17-year-olds. They weren't like infants in their mother's arms. They were fully aware they were breaking the law when they came. But who shuts down the federal government to aid usurpers who invaded the country and have no right to be in the country? I mean, where is your ordered sense of priority, your patriotism, your sense of duty and loyalty to government? Whatever, equities you may think because somebody evaded the law or was brought here at a certain young age, you shut down the government in order to provide basically rights that you're giving people advantages because they broke the law. It's really what the Democrats and some Republicans are trying to do. I mean, you have to give credit. You have to give credit to Donald Trump, that his willingness to stand up to this kind of institutional blindness or corruption. Nobody can be blind to the fact, Kevin, that what's happening in this country is the Democratic Party, desperate to build a political base out of the shattered fragments of the old industrial labor class, which is now pretty much gone, has decided to destroy U.S. immigration controls in an effort to re-engineer the American electorate. Power, combined with Wall Street's desire to use immigration to moderate wages, is why this country faces immigration chaos and a complete crisis. Only Americans through talk radio. You know my big thing about talk radio. Your audience is key, critical, and fundamentally important. The only thing that is counterbalancing these corrupt interests are the engaged activism of people like your audience.
Well, and that's where we need to motivate folks, Dan. Dan Stein joining us from FAIR at KIDO Talk Radio. What do you make of the DACA program? And didn't Obama and everybody at the time understand the whole thing was unconstitutional? But again, forgetting about the law, it was an emotional appeal. Well, we just can't do these things. And Dan, you as an attorney, the law is the law, and I can go in and talk to a judge and go, well, I feel really bad, but if I committed a crime, I'm held accountable.
Well, of course, Obama repeatedly said he didn't have the authority to do what he then did right before the 2012 election because he wanted to help Harry Reid. It would, again, craven politics, political power, and the fact that Loretta Lynch and others told Obama, nobody would have legal standing, he thought, to go to court to stop him. Well, surprise. Actually, the DAPA program, anyway, the parent version, got enjoined in Texas. So Obama was surprised. But meantime, the Democrats run around talking about a DACA fix, like somehow something got broken and we got to fix it. No. The reason we got to fix it is because people broke the law. And how you fix it is by putting them in removal proceedings and sending them back to the country where they're citizens and they can prosper and pursue all the glories of their life in the country where they were born. More importantly, if you're going to talk about any kind of an amnesty program, a big problem in our law is chain migration, which frankly, and thank goodness, even people like Lindsey Graham are beginning to realize that the law is a Trojan horse. You give amnesty to 2 million people, they're going to multiply by bringing relatives. They're all their relatives under the law, so you might get another 5, 10, 8, 10 million. So the fix isn't DACA. The fix is eliminating chain migration, and now the Republicans have offered, Grassley and some allies have offered, say, okay, you guys want your DACA, we'll give you a 3-year work permit on the DACA people, but in exchange for that, you got to give us many of the things Trump campaigned on, including eliminating chain migration, merit system, sanctioning sanctuary cities. That takes us back to the original topic. Oh, what does Durbin say? No, we can't do that. No, we're not going to give Trump anything. No, we everything has to be our way, one-way street. Give him an amnesty, ramp it up, and frankly, if it's just DACA, that's not enough. We want the whole enchilada. We want every alien who's ever broken our laws to get a green card and path to citizenship, and their relatives. This is the unreasoning position they're taking. So you wonder why we don't have a debate about their position's untenable.
Dan Stein, if people want to help save America, what can we do? What can they do?
Well, they have to be involved in this. Naturally, you're giving me the opening, which is very nice, Kevin. But, FAIR is your one-stop shop to get all the real-time actionable intel and the tools you need to make your voice heard. And, of course, you're part of our, the family,
Yep.
of those integrated talk show hosts in this country who really have engaged in up-to-date listeners. But with FAIR, if you go to FAIRUS, that's fairus.org, sign up. Just give us your email address. You're going to be empowered with the day-to-day up-to-date information as well as the tools you need to make your voices heard exactly where it counts the most. And again, the only thing counterbalancing is a citizen army that's built all across the country. That your listeners say, "Gee, I thought I was the only one concerned about mass immigration." It's not that I'm anti-immigrant, but you get too much of a good thing. And, the whole thing comes apart. The whole country comes off the rails. So you're not alone. There are millions of Americans who agree exactly with you, listener, the Kevin Show, and become part of FAIR's operation, become part of what we're doing here. You can, everything about social media and the Internet, by the way, Kevin, is helping Americans re-empower themselves to press their leaders, their elected officials to control our borders. And that's part of why, look, Donald Trump won on this issue in trade.
He did. And he did. We've got to support him on this. Dan, always appreciate it. Honor to be a part of the family, and we'd love to have you back, sir.
Always a pleasure, Kevin. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. Our great friend Dan Stein joining us from FAIR. And as we've said, we've supported FAIR for years when we're talking about our borders, culture, when we're talking about the way America needs to go. The people voted, and we see that. Sanctuary cities, people killing people, not being held accountable. You can't just have emotion running things, right? Speaking of emotion, if you're looking for something to do today, and I tell you, I'm always looking for something to do. I don't have enough to do, but sometimes you need a break. I'm going to tell you about one of the best-kept secrets in the Treasure Valley, okay? Maybe you've heard it on traffic and you've heard of other things, but this is the KIDO Talk Radio Power Business Luncheon. And we're not going to sell you anything. Although selling is good. We're all selling. A friend of mine who's a sales trainer, John Costigan, we always thought about writing a book, saying life is sales. We're always selling, whether we're selling literally or not, where, the kid is selling you on trying to get that Christmas gift or vice versa. Anyway, there's a young man, and I'm a fan of these people. His name's Sean Buck. He's the CEO of Newsletter Pro. And it's a free lunch at the West Ada School District, Renaissance High School. You just kind of walk in. It's the salmon room, the salmon room, whatever you want to call it. And Tucanos will be catering the lunch. You don't have to pay for anything. It's sponsored by our great friends at Boise Office Equipment. And the topic is how to dominate even the most competitive markets with traditional and non-traditional advertising. And Mr. Buck is a self-made man, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But if you would like to go, you can send us an RSVP email at, businessluncheon@KIDOTalkRadio.com, or simply you can go to our website, and here we have it right here, so we can make sure that we give you the proper blah, 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 blah. Businessluncheon@KIDOTalkRadio.com, by the way, is the correct email. Or you can just go to the website. It is right there at the upper left-hand corner, Power Business Luncheon, and you can click that, and you'll be good to go. I hope to see you there and would love for you to join us and to get a free lunch and to get some knowledge, right? So what would you say is knowledge is power? You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go back to the phones and go to Barb in Sunny Slope with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Barb.
Hi there. I'd like to chime in on this Kate Steinle, I would call it a murder or at least misdemeanor in California.
Well, at least manslaughter, I would say.
At least manslaughter. And, the one part that the trial really focused a lot on how he is an illegal immigrant, which of course he is. But, there was another part of this, and I just sent it to you in an email on a news article, that behind this illegal immigrant obtaining this gun was, are you ready for it, Kevin?
Wait a minute, he found
BLM.
it. He found it.
Huh?
He found it on the street or something like that.
Yeah, well, no, apparently, agent, and boy, his name is tough, Rowaszkowski or something, a BLM agent, had two guns, as a matter of fact, BLM guns, in his car, and he did not secure them. One was in a backpack, and one was in the wheel well of the probably spare tire. And I don't know, maybe the car was unlocked. It did not say he broke into, he had to undo a lock to get into the car, but apparently the illegal immigrant took it from the backpack in the car, which, of course, this unsecured gun is even against BLM regulations. But the BLM, rather than even chastising him for having a loose gun running around in this car, gave him a promotion, and they denied the prosecution the opportunity to bring him in on this. They didn't even get to bring up that this gun came from this guy.
Well, imagine that.
And not only that, but I'll quote here: the BLM did not discipline this agent or hold him responsible in any way, but contrary, they promoted him 5 months later. I mean, and they have this statement that says that the BLM made every attempt to protect him from having to testify at this trial, arguing that they have to give their permission before any of their employees can be forced to testify at a trial, which, of course, they're unlikely to do, and that is directly out of the article. I just thought, here it goes again.
Well, we know you're a fan of the BLM. Barb, I got to run, but thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Our great friend Barb from Sunny Slope. Coming up next, a live report concerning what's going on in Washington, particularly tax reform and this whole moving of the Capitol. What is Congress's reaction to President Trump's big announcement yesterday? Plus, coming up, Colin Kaepernick, for one organization, he's their Man of the Year. Can't wait to hear what you have to say about that. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio out to Washington, D.C., our great friend Rachel Sutherland, joining us now from Capitol Hill to talk guns. Good morning, Rachel.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. Yeah, the House of Representatives yesterday passed a concealed carry reciprocity bill, which would allow people who have a concealed carry permit to have it recognized in a state that's not their home state. But you still would have to follow the rules of that home state. Now, it passed the House pretty handily, but it faces a tougher climb in the Senate.
Why would it be a tougher climb in the Senate, Rachel?
Well, because at this point, they still have the legislative filibuster. And I don't know that they would try to use some kind of reconciliation like they've done in the past, like with the tax reform bill, bringing the threshold down to 50 votes. At this point, if they don't do something like that or get rid of the legislative filibuster, they would need 60, and that would mean that several Democrats would need to come on board, and that's rather unlikely. So it has to do with the rules of the Senate, and I don't want to get too wonky about it, but yeah, it's not a sure thing in the Senate by a far cry.
So this would basically, what would it do? Would it allow reciprocity between states that have had concealed carry ordinances that you don't need a permit?
That's right. You would need to, your permit that in your home state, say there in Idaho, if you were to come to Virginia, Virginia would recognize your concealed carry permit. However, you would need to then obey all the laws. If I were someone like that, I would Google ahead to where I was going, and if there was a rule about you don't want to carry a concealed firearm into a county library, well, you wouldn't want to do that.
Right.
So it's not a free for all. It's just a matter of recognizing it. It's almost like you're almost like a driver's license being recognized in another state.
And here's the other one that's interesting. What happens? Idaho just got rid of its concealed carry, so you don't need a permit. I wonder if they've thought about that.
Oh, they have. that's an interesting point. I guess it just would be kind of a moot point then. So if you didn't need a permit to carry, then but again, I think it's always wise if you're planning on traveling to check out the laws of the state you're going to, even aside from gun laws. I mean, just figure out, where you're headed. But if you, especially here in the District of Columbia, and I live in Virginia, and a lot of times people are commuters, they go back and forth. And for the longest time, D.C., there were no guns at all. And then finally they passed a law that you could have it in your home, and now they've expanded gun laws even more. But people who travel around the area from Virginia to D.C. to Maryland, there are vastly different rules for each jurisdiction, vastly.
One can only imagine. Rachel Sutherland, thank you, ma'am.
Thanks.
All right, appreciate that. So we'll keep you covered on that situation. We'll monitor it throughout the morning. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We didn't get to this yesterday, but we're always looking at cultural issues. And believe it or not, Colin Kaepernick appearing publicly to accept an honor from Sports Illustrated. Let's get our own Matt Napolitano at KIDO Talk Radio with Fox News with the very latest.
Introduced by music superstar Beyonce, Kaepernick received the Muhammad Ali Legacy Award Tuesday night, an award given annually by the magazine to honor players who use their platform to change the world. Kaepernick making a rare public appearance to accept the accolades.
With or without the NFL's platform, I will continue to work for the people, because my platform is the people.
Kaepernick currently with a grievance against the NFL, accusing owners of colluding against him to keep him off their teams because of his protesting during the national anthem in the name of social injustice. Sports Illustrated, not the first magazine to honor Kaepernick for his efforts regarding social justice reform, given the GQ Citizen of the Year award and on the shortlist for Time Magazine's Person of the Year. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
And there we have it. So there we have Colin Kaepernick, the Man of the Year.
I accept this award not for myself, but on behalf of the people. Because if it were not for my love for the people, I would not have protested. And if it was not for the support from the people, I would not be on this stage today.
By the way, the people are not supporting the NFL at KIDO Talk Radio.
President Trump, meantime, continues to tell fans to stay away from games as long as players kneel during the national anthem, and it may be having some effect. Last season, just under 18 million fans attended games. This season, through 13 weeks, just under 13 million have attended. So the weekly average last season was just over 1 million. This season, just under 1 million, down just about 49,000 per week. That's about 3,000 per stadium if you average it across 16 games. What might be more worrying are TV ratings, which are down significantly this year, although it's impossible to say whether that's because of the kneeling issue.
And that is our own Jonathan Hunt. By the way, we'll get into that. Has the NFL become a thug league? First, to the phones at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Colin Kaepernick, it shows you again how blessed we are to live in Idaho, where you have this person that has the socks, degrading law enforcement, calling them pigs, calling them all sorts of things. And he can't get a job, so he's suing the NFL. He's saying all these things about down with America, and he gets an award. For what? Muhammad Ali and the civil rights movement, they stood up for things. Their lives were threatened. I still don't understand what Colin Kaepernick is protesting. Police brutality? Tell that to the cops in Chicago that put it on the line every day. Tell that to the police officers here. Tell that to any law enforcement. I think, and this is speaking rationally, so it's kind of a stretch for the Hollywood liberal media elite. But if you really want to criticize someone, live a day in their life. Go on the south side of Chicago, Mr. Kaepernick. You've got a lot of free time. I'll tell you what, one person who has the street cred, the corporate cred, the every credibility that is Jim Brown. The greatest running back in the history of the NFL, albeit with the exception of Walter Payton, in my personal opinion. Jim Brown, he goes to the streets, he talks to these folks. He lives it. Mr. Kaepernick is a media creation that, again, has no idea what the heck he's talking about. And he can thank, his actions for pretty much destroying the NFL. But the NFL is in way big trouble, and thankfully, who can relate to them anymore? Let's go to the phones, and we go to Tom Munns, otherwise known as Frisky Tom, joining us now at KIDO Talk Radio, who wants to talk a little guns. Good morning, sir. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Well, I just wanted I had a couple of people wonder where I was, so I thought I'd call in and go, no, I'm still alive. I've not been hijacked.
Well, that's good because, there were 2 sonic booms last night over Area 51. We thought they had you.
Well, if they, and I guess if you don't see me for a long period of time, maybe something like that will happen. But, hey, enough with the tin hats, huh?
Well,
anyway.
tin hats have a home here, but go ahead, please.
Well, I wanted to, this issue with gun reciprocity and all of that, and, people have known me to kind of talk about the Constitution as one tune, but I'd like to be able to bring things a little bit around a different way. We used to talk about the Second Amendment and what that meant, and talking about how the states had the authority to tell the federal government to go pound sand about gun regulations, and the states decided to cower and allow the federal government to literally put the heel on the back of the neck of the states and the citizens of those states. But we have a new thing now. Well, it's not new actually, but there's a new way to be able to sell nullification, or the ability for the states to empower themselves over the federal government, and that's something called coordination. And there are a few people talking about it in the states, and before people write it off as a conspiracy theory, it's written both in the state statutes and the federal statutes that actually states that it actually is written that anytime the federal government wants to impose anything that they want to impose, the states or the local jurisdictions, the federal government must coordinate with them. And if they can't, in fact, coordinate with them, then the federal implementation does not need to exist. And it's
right.
quite
Who is going to, Tom, we've had nullification talk in the state, as you know. Your guy, Governor Otter, talked about nullification, and he mentioned it. He shook his fist, figuratively and perhaps literally, at the feds, and then we retreated into the quiet night of accepting Obamacare. Look, I appreciate your passion, but at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, haven't the feds dropped the big one? And, who's going to stand up to the feds when they pay for, 35% of our budget, our existence?
Well, and here's the thing about coordination is the fact that when you use coordination rather than nullification, since the states don't have the fortitude to be able to deal with that issue, it specifically states that as I understand it, federal funds cannot be reduced because it's extortion, or whatever term you want to use related to that kind of a topic. So this is not nullification. This is coordination, and the fact that it requires it tries to restore liberty by allowing the federal government or forcing the federal government rather to coordinate with the local jurisdiction. Now, this can work at the state. The neat thing about this is it can work at the school board level.
Sure.
It could work at the city level. It could work at the county level.
So, and this is in particular to what we were talking about with guns.
Yes, because we all know that, the Freedom from War document in 1961, written by our own State Department, laid out a plan on how to reduce and strip citizens of their firearms. They are not going to stop until we are completely disarmed.
Now, how can you say that when they said that they're going to have reciprocity for concealed carry?
Because unless we have a miracle and there's a changing of the guards of the controlling elite, the Freedom from War document that's consistent with the United Nations, that's really infiltrated every part of our government, is still that controlling entity.
Tom, we appreciate the call. Thank you for that. Munz Tom Munz on TomMunz.com, Munz Tom on Twitter. Our time at KIDO Talk Radio is 6:50. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
I accept this award not for myself, but on behalf of the people. Because if it were not for my love for the people, I would not have protested. And if it was not for the support from the people, I would not be on this stage today.
And there we have it. He's standing up for all of us. Thank you, Colin Kaepernick. We appreciate it. Kevin Miller in the morning. He is Sports Illustrated's Man of the Year. Impressive. He's not doing it for himself. He's doing it for the peeps. With your reaction at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, we go to Hank in Boise. Good morning, Hank.
Good morning. My point is the Man of the Year time used to be who made the most impact
right.
on
This
the
is
news.
this is Sports Illustrated's Man of the Year.
Yes, and Sports Illustrated was part of the Henry Luce chain of magazines, like Time, Life, and Sports Illustrated. But it's what the people since Henry Luce has passed from the scene have changed it into. In other words, the Time magazine put Stalin on the cover as Man of the Year in 1939 or Hitler in 38, not because they approved, because they had the most impact on world affairs. The Man of the Year thing now is used to promote a social agenda, and it's kind of reflective of what's happened to the journalism and the press in general, what's going on in Time magazine. And a lot of the people who are editors and reporters at Time magazine rotate from Time magazine to Democrat administrations when the Democrats are in power, and rotate back to Time magazine in between. So it's also reflective of the incestuous relationship anymore between your mainstream outlets and journalism today with politics. There's no separation between journalism and politics. We always had bias in the press, but we never had something as blatant as, for instance, using the media to promote a certain political party's agenda.
Right, but we see that all the time. We see that all the time with, the media's love affair with Colin Kaepernick. Now, maybe if he was talking about supporting police officers or, supporting Donald Trump, you'd have people having bigger issues with this, right? You would have people not getting on his bandwagon. I don't know how anybody in their right mind can support this person and say that he's a hero, that he's the Man of the Year. He was failing. He made a bad call by opting out of his contract, and all of a sudden he's made a fool of himself and the NFL.
Yeah, but but he's promoting a social agenda that Time finds that the current people in Time magazine find desirable. That's the point. Well,
it's promoting their agenda, Hank. Thank you for the call.
Thank you.
All right. He's not getting our Man of the Year award. Traffic and weather together at KID. Good morning, Arvell. Thank you for waiting.
Well, Kevin, I was just listening to talk about Kaepernick and the social injustice that he supposedly stands for, but I would be supportive of him if he would kneel on behalf of the 55 million unborn babies that have been killed since 1973. I think that's our greatest injustice in this country, and I wish there was more brought to the public's understanding that this is a travesty in our country, and it needs to stop. So just want to share that.
Well, you just did, my friend.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. And to Pro-Life here before we roll on the top of the hour. Good morning, Pro-Life. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Yeah, Colin Kaepernick, he was raised a Christian. He has Christian tattoos. He has a cross tattooed on his body. Then he got an Islamic girlfriend, and he's become Islamic, and he's an Islamic infiltrator. And when he talks about the people, he wants this to be a Islamic nation. So that's the kind of guy he is. He's a very dangerous kind of a guy, and people shouldn't pay any attention to him.